Hi everybody, my name is Sarah, Pearls of Wisdom and Food on both YouTube and Facebook. And guess what? I'm dressed. Look at this. I'm set for the day. Who knew? Totally different than usual, right? So, I'm sure you've all heard this saying, and I want to talk about both sides of it. Having a mind of your own. Do you have a mind of your own? Now, sometimes that means, she's just got a mind of her own. She never listens. She just is self-will, run riot. She just does as she pleases. Doesn't matter what happens, what the consequences are or the results of it are. She just does what she wants to do when she wants to do it, and that is that. A mind of your own, in a good sense, is knowing that what you are doing, you have processed. It has a sound reasoning behind it. It matches the logic that you kind of have and express. And you have a peace from within with your mind of your own. Now, one person private messaged me that she sometimes second guesses herself. Okay, so there you have it, right? Having a mind of your own means that you're second guessing. It might happen, right? Because you're gonna. And then what happens is that you process it out, you come to your own conclusions, you realize that maybe you're a diet plan jumper, for example. That would match here, right? And so you might jump from plan to plan to plan, never giving your body a chance to adjust. Now, in my case, that would be going from glucose adapted, which is the standard American diet, also known as the Western diet, also known as the middle of the aisles of the grocery store diet, and going to low carb, high fat to become fat adapted and not giving your body a chance. Now, in my case, I switched to low carb, high fat at age 64. So I had decades of eating the standard American, also known as SAD, diet for years before I made the jump. And it wasn't a jump. It was a partial 1 foot in both places. I went, I guess what you would say, gluten-free. So I was still having like gluten-free crackers, gluten-free, I was having gluten-free pizza from the pizzeria. I was buying some of those Amy's things in the frozen section that were gluten-free. So I was still partaking in grains. And then I read William Davis's, or I never finish a book. You should know that about me by now. So I was reading his Total Health, which came out after Wheat Belly. And then he said, okay, now it's all grains, not just the wheat. Are you ready and willing and going to give up all grains? And it's like, okay, I'm in. And so I gave up all grains. And so my two go-to flours now are coconut flour, and I use that with my egg parm and not often, and wheat flour, slip, almond meal flour, which I use for my fathead pizza. And so I made that jump. And the whole idea of having a mind of my own is that I read enough, listened to enough, from podcasts to books to articles, to have the courage to do the all-in and go with it. And I wanted to become fat adapted for all kinds of good reasons. And if you're curious, what's the difference between glucose adapted and fat adapted? Now, can you be on Weight Watchers and be glucose adapted and still lose weight? Absolutely. And there's tons of proof out there, right? They have wheat and other grains in limited quantities, and they still partake in processed foods, but they monitor their smart points or their PPV, the plus points that they used to do. And they do those things and they're successful. And that is great. And so they get to enjoy things like Oprah's bread ad about loving bread. So they get to partake in those things. It works for them. They lose the weight. they continue to be glucose adapted, but they become more and more aware of their carbs, their fats, and their sugars, and hopefully along the way, kind of leaving a lot of the middle aisles behind them. Because I hear that the new Weight Watchers Smart Points is really stressing healthier eating. The Fat Adapted is a grain-free, sugar-free plan. And so it's always interesting to talk about, read about, feel about low carb, high fat, and the work that you need to do to be there. You know, the assumption, the understanding of all of these authors and books on it and podcasts and even PBS specials is that you have done the work of eliminating the grains and the added sugar. So when you become low carb, high fat, and I don't necessarily call it high fat as much as I call it the high oils, the healthy oils, HF, and healthy fats. And so then wanting to become fat adapted, you've done the work. It's kind of like you can't run a marathon without training. And that's what becoming fat adapted would be. There are some steps that you have to take. Now, some of these doctors that do low carb, high fat, like Dr. William Davis and others, do have chapters in their book on how to make the transition and what works, what doesn't, and how you become fat adapted. And what it basically means is that your body is looking to fat to burn for your energy, not the glucose that you would get from the standard American diet or some grains and added sugar. So anyway, it's all very fascinating, but it's having your own mind about it and knowing that you have made the decision. And I have seen some people jump from this plan to that plan to this plan, and that's their journey, and they do it because they need to get to the solid foundation of a mind of their own. And I totally honor that. And I totally think it rocks, because every decision they make about every food that is in their tracker, because they still track, is a decision that's made based on their experience. And my experience with certain foods can't be your experience with certain foods. For example, steamed organic broccoli. I can have it for dinner, and then if I become bloated and gassy, it's dinner time and I'm not leaving the house again. And so it's, most of it will probably be dissipated in my sleep. If I have steamed organic broccoli at lunch, my stomach swells up like a beach ball. I'm gassy, I'm uncomfortable, and I make a mental note, broccoli at lunch is not a good idea. So you see what I mean? So my mind of my own is about when I can have a certain food and not quote unquote get away with it, but it works in my body. And maybe you can eat broccoli and nothing happens. And so you're listening to this and you're going, I don't get what you're talking about. It's never happened to me before. So that's what having a mind of your own is. And that's why sites like this, all the other Weight Watcher sites, low carb, high fat, cooking keto with Christy, all of these sites along with these books, the honor of having your own mind comes from, okay, this person says that they have this and it works for them and they lose weight and they're not constipated and they really like it, and then somebody else could have some sort of, even, like on our good list of a certain vegetable or a certain grain or something that gives them a headache, and they go, not for me, I tried it. And so some of you have heard me say over the months that I have adapted from low carb to high fat, that there have been a lot of purchased products that have ended up not being used by me, because I'd buy something to experiment, because it's not like I can say to one of you, hey, that unmodified potato starch from Bob's Red Mill, can somebody send me a small baggie of it because I want to try it to see if this prebiotic works for me? So instead I spent, I don't know, it was $3 or $4 or something like that. So this wasn't a huge investment, but I spent that money and dove right in with a tablespoon a day. And I paid the price. It was it was probably too much for my body, and I have not yet ventured back into the pool of the unmodified potato starch to feed my to use as a prebiotic to feed my probiotics. So, lesson learned by Sarah. Some of you probably might not have had any problem with it if you went and bought it. One of the tribes people said they have a quarter of a teaspoon every other day. Well, that sounds much more reasonable, doesn't it? But my mind of my own dove in. I'm going to have a tablespoon of this. I want to feed those probiotics. I want a healthy gut, right? Thinking of all the years, I mean, up until this year, I usually had 7 or 8 bouts of bronchitis where I took the Z-Pak and steroids every single time. Every single time. My flora in my gut must have been just horrific. And so sometimes a mind of my own comes from strongly suggested ideas from people that I respect, like my nurse practitioner. Excuse me. When she strongly suggested I did not take an antibiotic and a steroid pack to get rid of my first shot at the wheel with bronchitis this year. And I didn't. She still gave me the prescription. I still filled it, but it sits there on the shelf because I trusted her wisdom. I mean, look at the work a nurse practitioner does to get to be one, right? So she strongly suggested it. I didn't do it. And now my mind of my own has been convinced, as it's almost April, that not taking any antibiotics or steroid for the entire season, because I would start sometimes at Labor Day. I remember Labor Day weekend on Cape Cod, I'm in the ER with my first bout of bronchitis. So my body was very familiar with different bouts, and of course probably taking all the things that I took by the second time. It's like it was useless, but to me it seemed like it worked. What does that saying go? Have a cold and take medication for 7 days and it lasts for 7 days. Have a cold and do nothing but like lots of liquids and chicken broth and it still lasts 7 days. So that's how it goes. Maybe it's with the flu too. So having a mind of your own sometimes means that there's a lot of homework and trial and error to get there. I don't want a mind of your own. I want a mind of my own. And so what might work for you, like people that can still have bread or some healthy oat products and that say gluten-free, that, you know, in their food plan, and it works for them, I say good for them. Now for me, because of my mental food addict, I wouldn't have them even if they were still safe in my stomach, because I get triggered by the grain idea. The Fathead pizza is just one place where I have a mind of my own. I've had it like 4 or 5 times. It works. It doesn't cause me to crave grains. It doesn't cause me to look for other num-nums in different places. You know, I'm not baking dessert bars with almond flour or coconut flour. I'm not doing the things that mimic grain desserts that I used to have. I'm treating the pizza as it saves me because it's made with no grains and it works. And so it's a solution for my food addict named Ms. Slick. Okay? So I don't know if I'm making sense with having a mind of your own. It's a slow process. It is always subject to tweaking because it's your mind and it's yours, right? So that's the beauty of this, is that we can change our mind. You know, and who was it? Oh, Dr. Hyman. For years he touted having healthy grains and no oils. And now here he is with his eat fat, get thin. And so he does say that you can have grains on his food plan. I think after they've been removed for a while and then reintroduced to see if there's an allergy of sorts. But that's neither here nor there. He now touts fat, and he now realizes that he was suggesting to all of his people, all of his patients in his practice, to have grains and healthy grains. And so it's just all very interesting. And so I think the wheat belly doctor, Dr. Davis, he totally flipped what he would recommend for nutrition to his patients, his heart patients, because he's a heart specialist. So it's very, very interesting, and I really honor doctors that switch up. Suddenly they get a mind of their own, they've done the research, they're scientific, and they've made the decision to change something up. And they apologize a couple of times and then move forward with their food plans to help the patients. And so this is how we roll. I mean, it's a journey, We learn as we go, and that's the blessing of all of this. It's like it's a process. And what might work for your belly today and your weight loss and your food program and your tracker, what might work today might not work a week from now. And that is okay. It's a mind of your own to create your food list, to create what works for you, whether it's maintenance, whether it's weight loss, whether it's just feeling better. It's yours, and you can own it, and you can work it, and you can be proud of your decisions. And that's what I love about a mind of your own. Thanks for watching today. This has been Sarah, Pearls of Wisdom and Food. Bye-bye for now.